Coming up on Growing Indoors with the Eco Garden House, we're going to thin some beets we've already planted, and we've got a bug problem that we're going to deal with, as well as planting some hydroponic Swiss chard. All of that coming up right now. Sponsored by Eco Garden House. At last, an indoor greenhouse equipped with complete, easy lighting and watering systems. You can grow perfect organic produce and plants at your home all year round. Grow 24/7, 365. You now have no excuses. Welcome to Growing Indoors with the Eco Garden House. I'm Joy Baird. One of the first tasks we have is we're going to thin out beets that we have planted here. Now these are just regular Detroit red beets. We've got in a grow bag here. And the reason why we need to thin them out is because beets grow in clusters. And you can take a look here. Each seed, let's isolate this out here. We planted one seed and we have two plants that are growing. And we want to thin out or remove one of the two, usually the smaller of the two. I'll do another one here. This is a cluster of, they've grown together here, of two. That's the smaller one. We want to remove that. Now why we want to do that is because we want these plants that we have left to develop top growth, and the leaves are edible, and also develop bulbs, the beetroot that is traditionally ate. Now some people eat the beetroot as well as the leaves here. But let's go to the dry erase board here and we'll explain what is going on. Now when you plant, let's take a look at what a beet seed is. It's a very gnarly looking seed. And what is going on in the seed is there's multiple little caverns or apartments there that contain the actual seed. So a one seed, unlike if you plant a tomato or corn, that's going to generate one plant. With beets as well as Swiss chard, they have multiple seeds per pod. So when you plant this, you're going to get a cluster of seeds, which when you're going to plant this, you may get, as you saw, 2, 3, maybe 4 plants come up in one area. So if we plant that, put the seed under the ground, and now you've got several stalks coming up. And again, like I showed, we want to remove all but one, or the healthiest one, so the plant can develop and grow. If you leave them all together, because I know, let's leave them together, let's grow more beets. Well, if you're growing beet greens, that's fine. You can leave them together. They're gonna, you're gonna have beet greens. If you're growing them more specifically for the bulb, you have to thin them out. Otherwise, you have 2 or 3 beets with bulbs that are the size of peas or small marbles, and you've defeated the whole purpose of growing beets in the ground or in the Eco Garden House. Either way, you want to thin them out if that's the intention of getting a large bulb. So I'm going to thin the rest of these out, and then we will move on to our bug problem. So now that I got the beet greens thinned, you can eat those greens as you thin them. They taste just like the bulb. So we got that done. We want to keep that watered. Now we want to talk about the problem that we have, which is bugs or non-essential, non-beneficial insects, which we're growing indoors in the Eco Garden House, inside of a house. So you're not going to have the pollinators, the bees or the butterflies or that type of insect coming in to pollinate. We've covered that in a previous episode. So we've got to hand pollinate some of this stuff, and some of it's self-pollinating. But we also now have some bad bugs in here, which is aphids. Aphids is an insect that will basically it's essentially like a tick on a human. It'll attach itself to a plant, lay hundreds of eggs, and those eggs will hatch very rapidly, very quickly, and then those aphids will suck the juice out of the plants. They don't gnaw the plants down, they don't eat or chew holes in the plants. They will simply just attach to the bottom of the leaves and suck the nutrients out of the plant. So we have got a problem with some aphids here. This is not necessarily an uncommon situation when growing indoors, but it's something that you want to be very aware of and how to control it. This can be a number of reasons why this may have occurred. One is the type of soil we're using. Also, it's been very, very warm recently outdoors, which that can contribute to the level of warmth inside the Eco Garden House as well. Our most affected plant is our cucumber plant, our pickling cucumber plant in the back. Now, if you're outdoors, one of the biggest beneficial insects that can help rid your garden of aphids is the ladybug, and or in that instance praying mantises, which we're not going to release ladybugs or praying mantises in the Eco Garden House. We do have 2 ladybugs in here for some odd reason, but we're going to leave them be because they're happy and things. They'll help control some of this problem, and a ladybug can eat hundreds of aphids in a day's time. So what the executive decision we have chosen to do on the cucumber plant is simply remove it, okay? Because it is very highly affected with the aphids. I'm going to remove the trellis, detach it, the string, and simply just going to cut it off at the base. And the reason why, you can see here these infected leaves. You can see the blackness on the bottom of the leaves. You can see the discoloration on the top of the leaf. That can be, that's highly affected with all the problems here. You've got, you can see white fluttery insects. You'll see, we've seen some orange or some red aphids or white aphids or black aphids. So what we're going to do with this here is discard this, not put it in our compost, put it in our trash and get it out of here. And we're going to replant our cucumbers back there, which these pickling cucumbers will take 58 days to reach maturity, so it's not a terrible loss. But in order to try to save this plant, it's going to be more of the plant is going to be more damaged than what it is going to be able to produce. So we'll get rid of that plant. And we do see some effect on the eggplant as well with the discoloration of the leaves. You can see the difference here between the 2 leaves. That's a non-affected leaf. This is an affected leaf. So what I intend to do, and we've got irrigation hooked up to both of them, so it's not a lack of water per se. As you can see, this here is kind of a droopy leaf, and the plant will start showing signs of there's a problem when you're watering it, and it still kind of shows it's I need water type of droopy. That's what some of the effects of the aphids will cause. It will continue to suck that juice out of the plant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and remove almost every affected damaged leaf, trying not to remove more than 25% of the actual foliage on this plant. That's kind of the guideline when you're trimming tomatoes or any type of vegetable plant here. You can remove up to 25%, but beyond that, that's when the plant really kind of goes in a downward spiral. 25%, the plant will regenerate the growth, no problem at all. So by doing that, we just want to go in and remove it at the actual stalk connection. And if I look carefully with my magnifying glass, I can see some aphids, some eggs in there. So I want to get rid of that plant, that leaf. So I'm going to go through and remove all those, and then we'll talk about a homemade remedy that we can apply to other plants in the Eco Garden House to help slow down and eliminate the aphids that may be hiding in other locations. Okay, so I've removed a good portion of the eggplant leaves, and the fortunate thing about this particular eggplant, in a previous episode, if you missed it, this was outside and we brought it in. We've done some maintenance to the soil to bring it in so we have less problem with insects than what we're currently having. But because it is a mature plant, it is already putting on a lot of additional foliage, a lot of additional leaves here than it would if it was developing growth. So there's a lot of extra leaves that will eventually develop, and we got rid of all these. Again, we'll put these in the trash, get rid of them. So what you want to do now, and we haven't got the cucumber plants, the cucumber seeds planted, but we'll plant them in the same container. But we'll soak everything down with a water soap mixture. 2 tablespoons per gallon is what is recommended, and adjust according to the container you're using. What the soap does, it helps kill the aphids, and what we want to do here is absolutely soak top, bottom, the whole deal. The soap is not going to hurt the plant, but it will hurt the aphids, and that's our goal here. So I'll just go through here and soak this down every day, maybe twice a day if it needs be, to try to exterminate the aphids. And we want to look and make sure that other plants don't have the aphids eggs developing. When you look and you're looking for aphid eggs and you have a magnifying glass, they look like little yellow dots, or little round, maybe cream color round things on the bottom of the leaves. And they can reproduce very, very rapidly. So what I'll do is, again, I'll just soak everything down. Even I'll spray around the base of the plant, just in case there are some burrowing in the soil. That soap will help, kill them off, won't allow them to move, and it'll destroy them. So that being said, we'll take control of the aphid problem in the Eco Garden House, which is not a terrible thing, just a little maintenance here and there, and then we should be good to go, and the plants will recover quite nicely. So now we're going to plant some hydroponic Swiss chard. Now, what is hydroponics? Here's the basic understanding of hydroponics. Hydroponics is a system of using water as the medium to grow in that contains nutrients for the plant's roots to absorb. Aquaponics is the practice of fish living in a tank, and that water gets pumped through the roots in different types of systems through the roots of the plants that are growing, and the plants pick up the nutrients that is the waste product of the fish. So that's the 2 different categories. We're doing hydroponics. So you can go and buy different types of nutrients to put in your tank or your reservoir. This is just a 2.5 gallon bucket, and it's got another bucket that slides in slightly inside of it with a tube that pumps water up, and then these clay pebbles or clay balls absorb the water and the nutrients, and that's where the roots of the plants attach to and grow down into, and eventually they'll grow into the basin and the reservoir here. But that's the initial outline of what this system does. It's ran on an air pump that pumps air down into the reservoir that pushes water up into this ring here, and it falls into the in the balls here, the clay pebbles, and then there's holes perforated in the bottom of this unit that allows the excess water to drain back into the basin. And then there's a gauge here to show when you need to add water and all that. So we're going to plant Swiss chard, and the nutrients, like I talked about, you can buy nutrients that at the store, and it can be quite expensive, and it's not necessarily an organic practice. They're not always organic chemicals that they use. What we have found that works very well is a company called Authentic Haven brand manure tea. This is organic manure tea. It has no genetically modified crops that the animals are fed. The grass is genetically modified free. There's no bad grass or hay that's fed, and the cattle aren't shot with chemicals or growth inhibitors or anything like that. So basically you get a couple of tea bags, free shipping, and we're just going to let this tea bag sit in the bottom of this, and it'll absorb, and the water will change kind of a brown color, and it doesn't stink or anything, and it really feeds the plants marvelous in the hydroponic system here. Walk up here. So we're just going to take, bag the whole thing, drop it in there, and then that will last a couple of months realistically. We've had it last two months without any problem at all, and it just keeps feeding the plant. Now the air pump runs all the time because you got to keep having water feed through the system here to water the roots. So this system, the air pump will run all the time, and it's ran on a different outlet that's in the back here against the wall. It's not hooked up into the nervous system of the Eco Garden House. So this is a great way to grow in the Eco Garden House as well as with the hydroponic system. And planting could not be easier. We've got two different varieties of Swiss chard, the white stalk or the Fort Hook, as well as rainbow chard, which is green and yellow and red stalks. So I'm just going to take 5 or, well, let's see, probably about 10 seeds there. And these are similar to, they are relatives to the beetroot, which they contain multiple growths or multiple seeds per cluster. And that's perfectly fine here because we want this to be just a massive array of greens here. So the way you plant in this particular unit, and every unit is slightly different, I'm just going to take and broadcast the seeds. I'm going to put some in the corners here, and then I'm just going to just sprinkle them all around. And as you can tell here, they're starting to fall into some of the cavities that the clay balls or pellets allow. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take and make sure that they're covered and not exposed to the light. And what will occur is, as the system works up and the balls begin to absorb the moisture, they'll push the moisture out. You know, the moisture will retain in all of the clay pellets there, and then the roots, the seeds will absorb the water and they'll begin to germinate very, very quickly. Probably in about 3 days we'll begin to see growth on this. And then that's as easy it is to plant hydroponically in the Eco Garden House, and we can harvest at any given time. And this will work for tomatoes, for peppers, for green beans. We kind of want to avoid some of the root crops like radishes and that type of thing, because we've had a very difficult time trying to grow radishes in this system. And simply there's some reasons I think it didn't work, and there's some professional reasons why they say it will work. So Swiss chard worked very well. Lettuce has worked extremely well in this system too. So we want to try Swiss chard in this. So Swiss chard in the hydroponic system, thinning some beets, and dealing with some bugs in the Eco Garden House. It all can be accomplished very easily with just some simple steps. Thanks for joining me. Join me again next time as we grow more in the Eco Garden House.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.